A number of concerns and controversies surfaced before, during, and after the 2008 Summer Olympics, and which received major media coverage. Leading up to the Olympics, there were concerns about human rights in China, such that many high-profile individuals, such as politicians and celebrities, announced intentions to boycott the Games to protest China's role in the Darfur conflict, and Myanmar, its stance towards Tibet or other aspects of its human rights record. During the Games in Beijing, the city was also under a high alert because of security concerns following civil unrest in Tibet and terrorist attacks by Xinjiang separatists. The levels of air pollution in Beijing also came under much scrutiny, due both to concerns about athletes' health and concerns that Beijing had failed to live up to promises it made during its Olympic bid. Foreign journalists at the Games reportedly faced various restrictions to the work, limitations to internet access, and threats of physical violence. The gymnastics competition caused a major worldwide controversy during and after the Games when some Chinese gymnasts were accused of being under the minimum age, but then cleared after an investigation. Other controversies surrounding the 2008 Summer Olympics included ticketing problems, displacement of Beijing residents due to construction and demolitions, and alleged persecution of individuals applying to protest. In spite of the various controversies, International Olympic Committee President Jacques Rogge said at the closing ceremony that they were truly exceptional games. Organizing concerns and controversies. Security. In April, non-Chinese in Beijing reported more regular checks of their identification and work permits, while travel agents in Hong Kong reported that multiple entry business visas for the mainland, commonly used by non-Chinese businessmen who lack work visas, were no longer being issued, apparently in an attempt to prevent the entry of non-Chinese activists. Increased security was put into place for the Olympics, and security personnel were trained to counter different terrorist attack scenarios. Anti-aircraft missiles were also installed over the Olympic stations in Beijing. The Times reported that China had mobilized 110,000 police and other security forces in Beijing itself, plus 1.4 million security volunteers and 300,000 surveillance volunteers. The security bill for Beijing alone was estimated in excess of £3 billion. Outside the capital, cities hosting Olympic events were patrolled by 34,000 troops, surface-to-air missiles guarded key sites, and 74 military aircraft, 48 helicopters, and 33 naval vessels were placed on high alert. Hong Kong's South China Morning Post reported that bar owners in the Sanlitun district of Beijing were ordered by police officials not to serve black people or Mongolians, as well as of 2 staff members that were ethnic Tibetan for the Olympics. Time magazine's Liam Fitzpatrick stated that the report by the SCMP was unconfirmed, and its information was from anonymous sources. Equally, the Washington Post interviewed several black bar patrons in Sanlitun, all of whom said they had not been denied service. China's official news agency Xinhua stated on the 21st of July the alleged bar policy was groundless and the city's public security departments, including Sanlitun Police, never demanded any bar not serve customers from any region or country ahead of the Games. Professionalism and etiquette. The Beijing government issued new mandates requiring police officers in the city to act more professionally, warning that violators would be reprimanded. By doing this, Beijing hoped to clean up its image in time for the Games. The government circulated pamphlets urging officers to desist from using foul language, being arrogant, and hanging up on people who call to report crimes. A drive was also launched to improve incorrect English translations common on Chinese signage and labeling in readiness for the Olympics. Signs were placed around Beijing, instructing locals not to ask any non-Chinese personal questions for fear of causing discomfort to tourists and athletes. Opening ceremony participant exclusion. Hong Kong Bishop John Tong Hon said of his acceptance to participate in the opening ceremony that, while the leaders of the 6 largest religions in Hong Kong were invited to Beijing, only in the case of the Catholic Church was an invitation not sent to the highest authority. I am embarrassed because our government ignored Cardinal Zen and invited me instead. Quote. He expressed his desire that China's government would someday give the same importance to greater religious and social freedom that it had in cleaning up Beijing's pollution in anticipation of the Games. Nonetheless, noting that the Olympic Games, the progressive China, singing Ode to the Motherland, sometimes called as the second national anthem of the PRC, was lip-synced by Lin Miyoka at the ceremony, who used the recording of another girl, Zhang Peri. Chen Qigang, the ceremony's chief musical director, claimed that this was because a senior Politburo member commented that Lin's singing was not good enough, but preferring Lin's appearance to that of Yang. Sun Vide, the spokesman for the Beijing Organizing Committee, said however that the decision to use both girls was made by the artistic director after consulting with broadcasters, who had recommended the change. Firework display. One part of the fireworks show, which displayed the 29 footprints that wandered into the bird's nest from outside the stadium, was simulated by computer animation to portray the real fireworks due to the hazy smog conditions and safety concerns with flying a helicopter near the display. Participants' issues. A number of sportsmen were criticized for the behavior at the Games. The Chinese men's football team was severely criticized by the domestic media for its poor sportsmanship, particularly during the match against Belgium. Defender Tan Wongsong was red-carded for kicking Belgium's Sebastian Pocognoli in the lower abdomen, while Zhang Zhi was ejected for elbowing an opponent. Mohamed Alireza of Iran was to race against Israel's Tom Berry in the fourth heat of the 100-meter breaststroke, but pulled out, allegedly under the orders from officials of the Iranian delegation for political reasons. Swedish wrestler Ara Abrahamian rejected his bronze medal in 84 kilograms Greco-Roman wrestling in protest over the judging of a semi-final match. Cuban taekwondo athlete Angel Valordia Matos kicked referee Chakia Chelbat in the face after being disqualified. His coach further accused the referee of taking bribes from Kazakhstan. Matos' records at the Beijing Games were erased, and the World Taekwondo Federation banned Matos and his coach from WTF events for life. Chinese taekwondo judges were accused of throwing a game to a weaker opponent so that the Chinese competitor in the next match would win. Advertisement in Spain. Prior to the start of the Games, the Spain men's and women's basketball teams featured in ads that appeared in the Spanish daily sports newspaper Diario Marca. The athletes, dressed in uniform and assembled out of center court bearing a dragon logo, posed with the hands pulling back the skin on their eyes. The Guardian said, "No one involved in the advert appears to have considered it inappropriate nor contemplated the manner in which it could be interpreted in China and elsewhere." A spokesman for the Organization of Chinese Americans said that the photo was clearly racist, and not even in a jovial way. Point guard Jose Manuel Calderon said the team was responding to a request from the photographer, while teammate Pau Gasol said it was absurd. People were calling the gesture racist. The IOC said clearly it was inappropriate. We understand the team has apologized and absolutely meant no offense whatsoever, and considered the matter closed. FIFA v football clubs dispute. In July 2008, the football clubs representing players taking part in the games, FC Schalke 04, SV Werder Bremen and FC Barcelona, made an appeal to the Court of Arbitration for Sport to prevent the star players, namely Brazil's Rafinha and Diego and Argentina's Lionel Messi respectively, from playing at the Olympics. FIFA's rules states that it was mandatory to release all players aged 23 or under for the Olympics, which was overturned on July 30, 2008, stating that the Olympic football tournament Beijing 2008 is not included in the coordinated match calendar and there is no specific decision of the FIFA Executive Committee establishing the obligation for the clubs to release players under 23 for this tournament. Quote, "This meant clubs were entitled to recall the players from the games if they wished." Despite the ruling, FIFA appealed to the club. Rafinha and Diego was released for the games under the provision that the salaries was paid for by the Brazilian Football Confederation. Despite resistance from his employer, Messi was eventually released for the games. Full CAS summary. Allegation of underage gymnasts in early 2008. Zhang Yun, an artistic gymnast who won 2 bronze medals at the 2000 Summer Olympics, admitted on state-run television that she was 14 when she had competed. Consequently, there was frequent speculation that members of the Chinese women's gymnastics team were 14 years of age or under, violating the minimum age requirements of International Federation of Gymnastics, the governing body of the sport, that requires gymnasts to be 16. Younger gymnasts are lighter and more supple than adult gymnasts, and have also been said to be more fearless when performing difficult maneuvers. The New York Times claimed that official media and some official websites in China, including that of the State General Administration of Sport, listed Chinese gymnasts' details which indicated that He Kexin, Jiang Yuyuan and Yang Yilan may have been as young as 14. During the Olympics, media focused their attention on He, Zhang, Jiang, and Deng. In response, Chinese officials claimed the discrepancies for He Kexin were caused by paperwork errors when the gymnasts switched teams. Chinese authorities presented passport information to show that they were 16 years old as of 2008. Chinese coach Liu Shangzhen explained that Chinese competitors had for years all been small. "It is not just this time. It is a question of race. European and American athletes are all powerful, very robust. But Chinese athletes are by nature that small." Sports writer E. M. Swift criticized the IOC for spent millions of dollars trying to ferret out drug cheats, allegations of institutionalized cheating by the Chinese government. On the 22nd of August 2008, the International Olympic Committee instructed the FIG to investigate the allegations that He Kexin was underage, and were asked to report back to the IOC later that day. The FIG accepted passport ages as valid proof and declared gymnasts eligible. On the 23rd of August, further pressure led the FIG to request additional documentation on 5 of the 6 athletes on the Chinese team. IOC President Jacques Rogge said that FIG had demanded birth certificates and all the documents like family books, entries in schools and things like that. While the FIG investigation was in progress, the IOC indicated reshuffling of the medals was unlikely. Having been satisfied with the proof of age received from the Chinese Gymnastics Association, the FIG ended the investigation on the 1st of October 2008, concluding that he and her teammates were eligible to compete. In a related story, Zhang's teammate in 2000, Dong Fangshao, was subsequently revealed to have lied about her age. She claimed to have been 17 in 2000, but worked as a technical official at the 2008 Games, and her certification gave a birth date of 1986, which would have made her 14 years old in 2000. In 2010, the figure raised Dong's scores, and the IOC stripped China of its team bronze for 2000. State training and expectations of Chinese athletes. As the host country, China's very high expectations put immense pressure upon athletes and coaches alike. Liu Xiang, the defending Olympic champion for the 110-meter hurdles, had pulled out of the heats with an injury. His victory in Athens 4 years ago was China's first gold medal in track and field, regarded by some as dispelling the widespread view that Chinese physiology was unsuitable for such a discipline. Hyped by the state and sponsors, with his fame and endorsements exceeding that of Liao Ming in China, Liu's withdrawal disappointed millions, with some accusing him of being afraid to lose, while others suggested that excessive pressure may have worn him out. Liu's coach had been told by government officials that, if Liu could not win a gold medal in Beijing, all of his previous achievements would become meaningless. Joseph Kapasek, a former rowing coach, was fired by China's Sporting Federation over a contract dispute. He had argued in favor of the objective declared in the German version to aim to get a gold medal, and against the Chinese-language version which stated that his athletes must win the gold medal. He said, "Nobody can guarantee a gold in any sport. But here, anything less than gold means nothing." There has also been criticism of the Chinese government's training regime. Parents and children endure considerable personal sacrifices. Young children often leave the families to endure long and tough training regimens. In the state academies, where 250,000 children are enrolled, critics also say that the sports schools focus on training at the expense of general education, leaving athletes unprepared to leave the sports system that has raised them. Zhang Wenjin, a C2 canoeing champion at the Athens Olympics, told the New York Times that he was ill-equipped to go to college or start a business. He recounted officials' threats to withhold his retirement income if he quit before the Beijing Games, adding that it was not possible to survive without those benefits. While Yang and his family have received numerous rewards for his achievement, he has not seen his parents in 3 years. On the opposite side, for those athletes who do win gold medals, the state offers a significant performance bonus. Cheng Efian, for example, could look forward to more than $150,000 in cash and bonuses for every Olympic gold medal she wins. Zhang said his wins at the 2002 Asian Games netted him about $28,600 in bonuses, more than the money his parents can earn in 10 years. Doping out of 4,500 samples that were collected from participating athletes at the Games, 6 athletes with positive specimens were ousted from the competition, although the rate of positive findings was lower than at the 2004 Summer Olympics. Doping experts expressed concern due to advances in doping technology. In July 2008, a BBC investigation reported that samples positive for erythropoietin were labeled as negative by WADA-approved laboratories. The IOC stated in October 2008 that it would begin retesting samples for political issues leading up to the Games. Migrant workers. The International Labour Organization estimated that China had 150 million migrant workers out of a total national working population of 764 million people at the end of 2006. More than 40 million of these migrant workers were employed in construction, an industry in which some 90% of the workforce was composed of migrants. 2008 Summer Olympics. Migrant workers routinely endured dangerous work environments and lacked any safety net, including medical and accident insurance. Problems of migrant workers included unpaid wages and high legal costs. Boycotts. Calls for sustained pressure and boycotts of the Olympics came from former French presidential candidate François Bayrou, Sudan scholar Eric Reeves and the editorial board of The Washington Post. In February 2008, American film director Steven Spielberg announced he was stepping down from his role as an artistic advisor in protest of the Chinese government's refusal to pressure Sudan to stop the continuing human suffering in the Darfur region, urging it to do more to stop these crimes against humanity. European Parliament Vice President Edward Macmillan Scott called for a boycott of the Beijing Games, and praised the Prince of Wales for not attending the Games. Additionally, 106 lawmakers in the United States circulated a letter calling for the U.S. to boycott the Olympics because of China's support of the Sudanese regime, and the forced relocation of 300,000 poor Chinese to make room for the Games. U.S. Senators John McCain and Barack Obama both claimed that they would have boycotted the ceremony if they were in the White House. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk became the first EU head of government to announce a boycott and was soon joined by President Václav Klaus of the Czech Republic. The German Chancellor Angela Merkel said she will not attend opening of the Beijing Olympics. The Geneva-based Group Center on Housing Rights and Evictions claimed that 1.5 million Beijing residents would be displaced from their homes for the construction of Olympics venues. Beijing's Olympic Organizing Committee and China's Foreign Ministry stated that 15,000 residents from 6,037 households were displaced. Some sources said that as of May 2005, 300,000 residents were evicted in preparation for the Games, and that police in Beijing placed many people under arrest for protesting against the evictions. Protester Yi Guozhi, who attempted to draw public attention to alleged forced evictions in Beijing due to Olympics-related construction, was sentenced in December 2004 to a 4-year prison term for picking quarrels and stirring up trouble. The British Olympic Association required that British participants signed an agreement before leaving for China, promising not to comment on any politically sensitive issues. Quote, however, a BOA spokesman stated that the BOA's intention was not to censor athletes, but to reaffirm the IOC Charter, which prohibits demonstration of political, religious or racial propaganda in any Olympic venues. In general, attendance at the 2008 Games was highly politicized, with as many as 80 political heads of state attending. Several major political figures, however, considered boycotting the Games for political reasons. On the 2nd of April 2008, the Japanese government announced that its royal family would not participate in the opening ceremony because of the international concern focused on the violent crackdown in Tibet. On the 5th of April, the newspaper Le Monde reported that French President Nicolas Sarkozy hoped that there would be an end to violence against Tibetans. The release of political prisoners, light to be shed on the events and the opening of dialogue with the Dalai Lama before the opening ceremony. The BBC wrote that while Sarkozy was opposed to a full boycott, he would not close the door to any possibility as far as his own attendance was concerned. Terrorist incident. On the 10th of April 2008, China announced that it had foiled a plot against the Games by Uyghur separatists in Xinjiang. According to the Chinese Security Ministry, separatists plan suicide bomb attacks on Chinese cities and kidnappings in Beijing to disrupt the Olympic Games. Uyghur activists claim that the Chinese fabricated these terror plots to prevent people in the region from voicing their grievances with the Han Chinese. On the 25th of April 2008, Interpol issued a warning that there was a real possibility that the Beijing Olympics would be targeted by terrorist groups. China reported 35 arrests as part of a 10-day raid. On the 4th of August 2008, two attackers detonated hand grenades at a police post near Kashgar, killing 16 policemen. Tibetan independence groups boycott calls. Some pro-Tibetan independence groups, such as Students for a Free Tibet, initiated a campaign against the Beijing 2008 Summer Olympics to protest for Tibetan independence. It also objected to the use of the Tibetan antelope as the Fuwa Yingying. The Tibetan People's Movement has also demanded representation of Tibet with its own national flag. American film actor Richard Gere, chairman of the International Campaign for Tibet, called for a boycott to put pressure on China to make Tibet independent. There were also plans by Tibetans in exile to hold their own version of the Olympics in May at the headquarters of the exiled government. The international journalist group Reporters Without Borders advocated boycott to express concerns over violations of free speech and human rights in China. It hoped that international pressure could affect the release of prisoners of conscience and the upholding of promises made to the IOC regarding improvements in human rights. In March 2008, Taiwan's President-elect Ma Ying-jeou threatened a Chinese Taipei Olympic Committee boycott if the situation in Tibet continues to worsen. Masahisa Tsuchitani, a Japanese craftsman who makes shots used by many Olympic athletes, announced the 14th of April he refuses to allow his wares to be used at the Games to protest China's treatment of protesters in Tibet. Disruption of torch relay during the Olympic torch lighting ceremony in Greece on the 24th of March 2008. 3 Reporters Without Borders journalists breached a cordon of 1,000 police at the ancient Olympia Stadium and interrupted the speech of Liu Qi, head of the Beijing Games Committee. One protester tried to snatch the microphone as another unrolled a black flag showing the Olympic rings as handcuffs. Nearly 50 Tibetan exiles in India began a global torch relay the 25th of March 2008 with a symbolic Olympic flame that ended in Tibet on the 8th of August 2008, the day of the Summer Games opening ceremonies in Beijing. Although the torch was heavily guarded by local police and Chinese security agents wearing blue tracksuits, protesters attempting to stop the relay or take the torch were a significant problem along the route. Disruption of the torch relay and foreign condemnation of China resulted in a backlash of nationalism and anti-foreigner sentiment in China. French goods and businesses were threatened with the reprisals for the assault on torchbearers through Paris, France. French retailer Carrefour was boycotted, and there were flag-burning protests outside some stores. Foreign media, particularly CNN, was severely criticized for its reporting of the Tibetan riots. The media reported that the attitudes of Han Chinese citizens towards non-Chinese and Chinese minorities in China noticeably worsened. In late April, Chinese internet censors, who had previously permitted posts critical of non-Chinese, began blocking words such as Carrefour, in what was seen as an attempt to calm tensions before the Games.